Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Corporate Finance online classes. This is Dr. Mahesh M. Manjeri, Assistant Professor from Department of Management Studies, SDM College of Engineering and Technology, Dharwad. Okay, so dear students, before we go ahead and begin Unit 4, so let us have the micro presentation by Chinmay. Okay, Chinmay, you are the host now.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Yes, visible. You can begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. Today I am going to present about the gross domestic product, GDP. Gross domestic product is total monetary or a market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's border in a specific time period. As a broad measures of overall domestic production, it functions as a comprehensive scorecard of a given country's economic health. How GDP is calculated. GDP can be calculated by adding up of all the money spent by consumers, business, and government in a given period. It may also be calculated by adding up of all the money received by all participants in the economy. How Indian GDP is calculated. India's GDP is calculated with a two different methods. One based on economic activity at factor cost, and the second on expenditure at market prices. The expenditure based method indicates how different areas of economy are performing, such as trade, investment, and personal consumption. Importance of GDP. GDP is important because it gives information about of the size of the economy and how an economy is performing. The growth rate of real GDP is often used as an indicator of the economy, general health of the economy. In broad terms, an increase in real GDP is interpreted as a sign of the economy is doing well. GDP represents the business activity. It helps to investor to know where to invest or allocate the money. Unemployment is an indicator of shrinking GDP. GDP is important to determine growth or decline of the economy. Contribution of different sector to total GDP. Sector-wise GDP of India. In GDP's contribution to agriculture sector is 20%, industry sector is 26%, service sector is 54%. Some factors are affected to GDP that are first one, non-marketed activities. All economically important activities are not bought and sold in market. With a few exceptions such as government services, non-marketed economic activities are omitted from GDP. An example is unpaid housekeeping services. Second one, underground economy. Many activities are performed unofficially. The underground economy includes both legal and illegal activities from informal nursing, house cleaning, or a child care to organized crime. House cleaners or plumbers are paid in cash. Such transactions go unnoticed by the tax authorities. However, such activities have a welfare implication. No doubt they may enhance or reduce social welfare. Next one, environmental quality and resources depletion. China and India have recently achieved tremendous growth in real GDP and are cited as two models of globalization. But in the expanding their manufacturing base, both countries have also suffered from a several decline in air and water quality. Increased pollution certainly reduces the quality of life, but because of air and water quality are not bought and sold in markets, the Indian GDP does not reflect this downside of economic growth. The explanation of finite natural resources also tends to be overlooked in GDP. If more oil is extracted today, less oil will be available in future. But this fact is not reflected in GDP. Incorporating factors like air quality and resources depletion into a comprehensive measures of GDP is difficult, since it often involves placing a rupee on intangibles, like having a clean river to take water instead of a dirty one. But the fact that the benefits of environmental quality and resources conservation are not measured in terms of money does not mean that they are unimportant. Next one, quality of life. Various factors make a particular town or a city an attractive place to live. Some of these desirable features get to reflected on GDP. Well constructed homes, good star hotels and restaurants, a variety of entertaining and high quality medical services. However, other indicator of good quality are not sold in markets, and so many may be omitted from GDP. Next one, poverty and uneconomic inequality. Economic inequality. The link between population, GDP, and poverty could occur in two directions. The first, which is widely accepted by social scientists, is that as GDP per capita improves and the poverty rate falls, the population growth diminishes as well. Moreover, GDP measures the total quality of goods and services produced and sold in an economy, but it conveys no information about who enjoys those goods and services. Two countries may have identical GDPs but differ markedly in the distribution of economic welfare across the population. Furthermore, people's economic satisfaction depends on not only on their absolute economic position as measured by the quality, quantity of food, clothing and shelter they have, but not what they have compared to what others have. To extent that such comparisons affect people's well-being, inequality matters as well as absolute poverty. Again, since GDP focuses on total production rather than actual distribution of output, it does not capture the effect of inequality. Next one, GDP of India compared with USA, China, Japan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka for the year 2021. India's GDP $2.59 trillion. GDP rate is 7.3%. US $20.93 trillion. GDP rate 6.4%. China $14.86 trillion. GDP rate is 6.5%. Japan $4.91 trillion. GDP rate is 5.3%. Pakistan $1.1 trillion. GDP rate is 3.49%. Sri Lanka $10.21 trillion. GDP rate is 1.6%. Thank you.
Yeah, that was an amazing presentation, Chinmay. Okay, so you covered
Thank you,
almost
sir.
all the points. Okay. And
Yes, sir.
communication was fluent. Okay, you are quite confident, and the PowerPoints were explained. Okay, the paragraphs were not copied and pasted. Okay, so that was so unique about the presentation. Okay, so very well done, Chinmay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, but one thing, yes, definitely, you would have rehearsed and saw how much time it would consume. It went on for more than 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the duration time allotted is only maximum is 5 minutes. Okay, but overall, it was a very good, excellent presentation. Okay. Yeah. So with this now, let us go back to our syllabus. So first, let me share the syllabus copy so that we can understand which aspect of the syllabus we have completed and that are remaining. Students, I hope you can see the PDF file.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is the syllabus copy, the first resource which I shared in Google Classroom at the beginning. I hope you can recall. Okay, so far, we have completed an introduction to financial management, 2 chapters in that. Chapter 1, financial management and overview, and chapter 2, time value of money. 10 hours were required. Yeah, we completed that in exactly 10 hours. Unit 2, long-term investment decisions, capital budgeting. Okay. So we learned the chapter number 9, capital budgeting evaluation techniques. Okay, so total for 12 hours. Then third unit was again related to long-term investment decision, but it was about measurement of cost of capital. Chapter number 13, concept and measurement of cost of capital, chapter number 11, sorry. So 10 hours. So exactly, okay, we are as per the schedule. I have completed 32 classes and 3 units are completed. So that is about 62% of the total syllabus. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to beginning unit 4, current assets management. Okay, whereas in last 2 units, we learned about long-term investments. Okay, so the company also has to make investments in current assets. Okay, for example, purchase of raw materials. Okay, then debtors. Okay, so there are different current assets where the company has to arrange for finance to invest in. Okay, so a list of current assets and current liabilities they definitely will go through, but before we begin, okay, so I'm just giving you an idea. So we are going to begin with chapter number, okay, let's see what is the number, working capital management and overview. Okay, students, I hope you are with me, you understand what we are learning.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
yeah, thank you. 3 units, unit 2, 3 and 4 were about investment decisions, scope of financial management or scope of corporate finance. Remember, investment decisions, financing decisions and dividend decisions. Okay, so 3 units, okay, were about investment. Unit 5, we will be learning about financing decisions, and unit 6 about dividend decisions. So that is the scope of corporate finance or financial management. Okay. Students, I hope now you can see the PowerPoint slides.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is chapter number 13. Okay, right. Working capital management and overview. So what are we going to learn in the chapter? This is the outline or topics in the chapter. Nature of working capital, planning of working capital, need for working capital, operating cycle, and determinants of working capital. This is all theory, and of course at the end we are going major part, okay, about 60 to 70% of the time allocated will be utilized for computation of working capital or estimation of working capital required, numericals. Okay. So each of these estimation of working capital required would be a case study. So I'll let you know as and when we reach computation part. Okay. So before I begin, okay, for non-commerce students, okay, as well as for commerce students, okay, your understanding of your semester 1 accounting for managers is a prerequisite, okay, for working capital management. If you really want to understand properly, clearly, okay, how to compute working capital, okay, then you should have very proper understanding of the concepts that you have learned in semester 1 in accounting for managers. If you have only solved for marks, then it will be very difficult. Huh? Each treatment, each current asset, each current liability will be treated in order to compute working capital. Okay, so each term will look very strange. Okay, provided, okay, so you have learned the concepts properly. Commerce students throughout your BCom and PU, and non-commerce students in your semester 1. Okay, then it will not be a problem. But anyway, so what I do is I take you through the theoretical aspects first, then the steps involved in computing working capital. Okay, only then I solve the numericals. Okay, so you need to pay attention. So working capital, okay, is required to invest in current assets. If I make this statement, okay, so working capital is required to invest in current assets. So can anybody just explain the meaning of this statement what I made with examples? You have to be a little bit quick and interactive. Huh? Commerce students, it is not difficult for you to answer. But if there is a non-commerce student also, I will be very happy. Yes, who would like to answer? If I say working capital is the amount required to invest in current assets. Okay, I have told 2 examples of current assets. Let us go for the examples. Who will give the examples of current assets? Who will give the example of current assets?
Cash in and cash at bank, sir.
Okay, cash in hand, cash at bank. Then, other than that,
Debtor, sir.
Debtors.
debtors. Okay, very good.
Sir,
Sorry,
prepaid tax.
not audible. Sakshi.
Prepaid tax.
Stock, sir.
Sorry,
Stock, sir.
stock. No, no, no. Who told you that? Stock means equity shares of a company or financial securities.
Sir, inventory, sir.
Inventory of what?
Goods, sir.
Raw materials, inventory of finished goods. Okay, so company should have money to invest in these current assets. Okay, let us consider the example of debtors. Okay, who are debtors? You have learned, no? So that's why I said a prerequisite for this unit is accounting for managers. You should have the concepts clarity. Yeah, who are debtors? Yes,
Sir, the one who took the loan from us, sir.
loan. No, dear, in context of accountancy, please. Okay.
So
Sir,
the person who has purchased but not paid, sir.
Not paid means it's not that he will not pay. What is that exactly? You tell me. What we call it in theory?
sir, credit sale, sir.
Very good, Vedesh. Okay. So when a company sells goods to its customer, say Hindustan Unilever Limited, ITC Limited, Coca-Cola Limited, for example. Okay, they sell their goods to wholesalers or distributors on credit. Let us say the credit period is somewhere 21 days. For example, I'm saying. Okay. So then the wholesalers or distributors become debtors of companies like Coca-Cola or Hindustan Unilever or ITC, for example. Okay, so if the goods are sold on credit basis, okay, so customers will purchase now, but they will pay later, say after 21 days or after 30 days. Then from where the company will get money to purchase raw materials? This is the one example. I'm not giving overall picture. Overall picture you will get when we compute working capital required. Yeah. So what is the opposite of debtors?
Creditors, sir.
Very good, creditor. So for a company, who are creditors?
From the one
Shareholders.
who,
Thanks,
from
sir.
the one who we purchased on the credit, sir.
Okay. So
Or
from
payable,
whom the
sir.
company has purchased on credit basis? Who are those? Okay, from whom company purchases on credit and what they purchase?
Sir,
Shareholders.
suppliers, sir.
No, 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 not shareholders. Yeah, somebody said it.
Suppliers, sir.
Suppliers, excellent. Who is that? Shivakumar?
Ganesh, sir.
Ganesh, very good, Ganesh. Okay. Companies like Coca-Cola, Hindustan Unilever Limited, ITC, they purchase the raw materials from suppliers on credit basis. Okay. See now, imagine that I'll give a simple situation. If the debtor's collection period, okay, is 21 days, means company will sell the goods to its customers on credit basis and collect customers will pay on 21st day, for example, or 22nd day. And the same company purchases raw materials on credit basis from suppliers of raw materials. Let us say the supplier of raw material also gives a credit of 21 days to this company. Let us say Hindustan Unilever Limited. What is the working capital required here? Can you tell me? See, it is absolutely nil because company supplier of raw materials is giving a credit period, okay, after which the Hindustan Unilever can pay. So it manufactures the goods and sells it to credit basis, okay, to its customers, and after 21 days its customers will pay. So using that money, Hindustan Unilever will pay back to its suppliers of raw materials. Okay. So the difference between this creditors and debtors, the difference between this amount of creditors or rupees payable to the creditors and the amount of debtors, the amount of rupee receivable, the difference is nothing but working capital, the amount of rupees which is required to carry on the day-to-day activities. Okay, so this is what exactly we are going to do. So we are going to compute the average amount required to invest in current assets. A list will be there, and we are going to find out the average amount of creditors. Okay, sorry, average amount of all the current liabilities. Then we are going to total current assets. We are going to total current liabilities. Okay, then the difference current assets minus current liabilities will give you working capital required, okay, for to carry on the day-to-day activities of production, distribution, and so on. So this is the background now. Okay, so let me go ahead with the first topic in the chapter, working capital, nature of working capital. Okay, so any queries? Anybody who is not able to understand what is working capital? The difference between current assets and current liabilities is the amount required to invest in current assets. Okay, shall I go ahead, or anybody has any questions?
Sir, the amount which is required for the day-to-day expenses is not called as working capital.
That is that amount which is required to carry out the day-to-day activities is working capital, correct? But how it is determined? It is determined by deducting the current liabilities from current assets. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So let's go ahead with the nature of working capital. Okay. So it is the capital of a business, means working capital is the capital of a business which is used in its day-to-day trading operations, calculated as current assets minus current liabilities, as just I mentioned. And working capital management is concerned with the problems that arise in managing the current assets, current liabilities, and the interrelationships between them. The way just I explained, there are interrelationships between debtors, creditors, and debtors. So what the companies try to do generally, or the finance managers try to do, they try to bargain for a longer credit period from the suppliers of raw materials, and they prefer to give a shorter credit period to their debtors or customer. Okay, so that way the amount required to invest in debtors will be very minimal. Concepts and definitions of working capital. Okay, so there are three concepts of working capital. So this is all theory for 3, 7, 10 marks. Okay, they will appear, so pay attention. So the three concepts of working capital are gross working capital, net working capital, and zero working capital. So gross working capital means the current assets which represent the proportion of investment that circulates from one form to another in the ordinary conduct of business. So the sum total of all the current assets is referred to as gross working capital. Simple it is. Net working capital is defined in two ways. One is, the most common definition of net working capital is the difference between current assets and current liabilities. See, so that is the reason why before I begin the first slide, I spent 5 minutes to make you understand the concepts in a simple way. Okay, so even if you have paid attention to the 5 minutes the way I explained, these all points will be very easy, along with your clarity of concepts in accounting for managers, semester 1. Okay. And then the key task of the financial manager in managing working capital efficiently is to ensure sufficient liquidity in the operations of the enterprise. As and when the payments of creditors become due, the company should have money to make the payment, to purchase raw materials, right? So the liquidity of a business firm is measured by its ability to satisfy short-term obligations as they become due. For example, supplier of raw materials has given a credit period of 30 days. So on the 31st day, the company should have enough money to pay the supplier of raw materials. Okay, if the company has the money or it can arrange easily, we call the liquidity of the business firm is very good. The three basic measures of a firm's overall liquidity are the current ratio, asset test ratio, and net working capital. Okay, so current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. Who will tell me the formula of asset test ratio? Just for interaction, I'm not going digging deep through it.
Liquid asset divided by liquid liability, sir.
Liquid assets.
Liquid asset divided by current liabilities.
Yeah, liquid assets divided by current liabilities. Liquid assets means which can be immediately converted into cash. Okay, like stock of finished goods, for example. Then net working capital, the difference between current assets and current liabilities. Okay. And the common definition of net working capital and its implications. We are going to learn now. Net working capital. See, what are we learning? Please pay attention. We are learning the three concepts of working capital. First one we just learned, gross working capital. Second concept we are learning, net working capital. Okay. Net working capital is commonly defined as the difference between current assets and current liabilities. Efficient working capital management requires that firms should operate with some amount of net working capital. The exact amount varying from firm to firm and depending among other things is the nature of industry. Okay, they're like capital intensive industries. Okay, need to carry a larger amount of working capital. The net working capital is necessary due to non-synchronous nature of expected cash inflows and required cash outflows. Okay. See, the company has to spend first to purchase the raw materials. Company has to spend to manufacture the goods. Company has to spend to transport the goods to the place of customer, like wholesalers and distributors, for example. Okay, and then they will get the cash, okay, from their customers. So the time when non-synchronous nature means the time when the company requires money to purchase raw materials, to manufacture goods and to transport them to the customers is different than when they receive money from their customers. So in between time period, the company should have money to meet the obligations that are on hand. One simple example is the payment to creditors, for example. The more predictable the cash inflows are, the less net working capital will be required and vice versa. The net working capital represents the liquidity position of a firm. See, what is the importance of this concept, net working capital? It represents the liquidity position of a firm. Okay. So what is the net working capital required in the company? Okay, so by knowing that, okay, one can understand whether this company's liquidity position is good or bad. If a company's liquidity position is bad, it means it will not be able to pay it will not be able to pay the payments that are going to do. Say due, for example, rent of the warehouses, for example, wages of the workers, for example. So the company should have money in hand. The third concept, okay, the third concept of working capital is zero working capital. Okay, so the concept of zero working capital of net working capital differs from a commonly used concept of working capital, that is current assets minus current liabilities. So the zero working capital is equal to inventories, inventory of raw materials, inventory of finished goods, etc., plus receivables, accounts receivables or debtors, minus payables. The rationale is that inventories and receivables are the major constituents of current assets which affect sales. Furthermore, suppliers finance inventories through account payable. Okay, see how suppliers finance inventories. Okay, so when a manufacturer purchases raw materials from the supplier, he bargains for a longer credit period, and the manufacturer prefers to give a shorter credit period to its customers, okay, or debtors. Okay, say for example, the company would get, for example, just okay, company would bargain for 40 days of credit, 40 days of credit, okay, from the supplier of raw materials. So they can purchase the raw materials now, but make the payment after 40 days. And assume that it takes 20 days to manufacture the products, just in case. Okay, and they sell the goods to their customers like wholesalers or distributors on credit, and the credit period is 20 days, for example. Okay, so on the 41st day, okay, this manufacturer will receive payment from the customers, that is wholesalers and distributors. The same amount he can use to make the payment of the suppliers of raw materials whose payment is due on 41st day. So in such a case, okay, in such a case, the working capital required would be 0. So permanent reduction in working capital funds results in less financial costs. The zero working capital concept forces the corporate to produce and deliver faster. Okay, to produce and deliver faster. Sorry. This in turn may help to gain new businesses. With low inventories, storage cost as well as loss due to obsolete inventories are also minimized when a company follows this concept of zero working capital, okay, leading to another set of savings in operating costs. But in reality, however, it may not be possible for most firms to operate at zero working capital. So rather more it is a theoretical concept. But keeping the target as zero working capital, yes, the company can frame their financial policies to keep the net working capital requirement at the lowest. That is how it works. Please remember. Yet the concept is important as it focuses that the firm should strive for carrying minimum safety stock of inventories, pursuing a good credit collection policies. Like I said, the company can manufacturer can bargain for longer credit period from supplier of raw materials like 40 days, for example. Pursuing good credit collection policies leading to minimum investment in debtors. Okay, and bargaining for maximum credit period from suppliers. So these measures would result in financial and production economies leading to higher return on investment. So from this point of view, the concept of zero working capital is important. So very highly professional and large organizations like Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 2000 companies, okay, adopt this concept. For others, it is very difficult to follow. Let me see what is the next topic. Yeah. So before I go to next topic, that is the planning of working capital. Any questions so far? See, can you connect these concepts with your accountancy students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's why I said the prerequisite. And for non-commerce students, okay, you can brush your accountancy again in semester 1. But anyway, everything I'm explaining, but still. Okay then. So after this small short pause, let's move on to the next topic, planning of working capital. So figure 1, okay, speaks about operating cycle. Okay. So the need for working capital arises from the cash cycle of a firm, which is popularly known as operating cycle of a firm. See, please pay attention, whether accountancy or non-commerce students, anybody, it is easy to understand, just pay attention. The need for working capital arises from the operating cycle of a firm. So what is the operating cycle? Okay. The operating cycle creates the need for working capital, and its length in terms of time span required to complete the cycle is a major determinant of the firm's working capital needs. So what we see here is one operating cycle of a company. So what is this operating cycle? Phase 1. Okay. So company purchases raw materials from the supplier of raw materials. So we call that inventory. And using that inventory, they manufacture finished goods. Okay. And they also hold inventory of finished goods until it is sold to customer. So when the finished goods are sold to the customers on credit basis, in my example, like Hindustan Unilever Limited selling the goods to their customers who are wholesalers and distributors. Okay, so they create accounts receivables or debtors in case of credit sales. Okay, and company usually gives, okay, some time for these debtors, okay, or wholesalers and distributors to make the payment. Example, I said 21 days, for example. So after 21 days, the company receives the payment from its customers. So one cycle is complete. And the company uses that cash or money to purchase raw materials again. Again, they manufacture goods. Again, they sell to their customers on credit basis. Again, they receive the payment after the due date from their customers. Okay, again that cash is used to purchase raw material. So it is a cycle. Cycle means like a wheel of a bicycle. If you know, it keeps rotating, it doesn't stop. If it stops means when the company closes down, this operating cycle stops. That's it. Okay, so any doubt, anybody who is not able to understand, because there are numerical problems also on operating cycle.
No doubt.
Okay, let's go ahead. Next topic is working capital can be permanent or temporary. So let us learn what is the permanent working capital first. Permanent working capital is a certain minimum level of working capital on a continuous and uninterrupted basis. Okay, certain minimum level of working capital on a continuous and uninterrupted basis. And a temporary working capital, which is also called as a fluctuating working capital or variable working capital, is the working capital needed to meet seasonal as well as unforeseen requirements. Say we made a visit, I think your class made the visit to Varun Beverages, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So what is the big season for the products of the company?
Summer.
Summer, very good. Okay, so what will happen in summer? The demand will be high. Okay, and the company's production will increase. Okay, and the company would require more raw materials, more labor, for which they will require more working capital. Okay, so that additional working capital, what is required due to the increase of demand in the season, we call it as a fluctuating or variable working capital. Okay, it is the working capital needed to meet seasonal as well as unforeseen requirements. Okay, and other than the summer, like in monsoon and winter, the company will require some minimum level of working capital, but it will not be as high as in the season of summer. So I hope that clarifies the concept of permanent and temporary working capital. If you have any questions, you can ask in the next session. I think the session is going to coming to an end now. Yeah, better I will wait for the session to end.